The one in this song is a prostitute, hence the inverted commas. It was released in May 1979 and sold 1 million copies. I had a number one single with a song about a robot prostitute and nobody knew.
Hey, everybody out there, welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's John and Andy here, and it's time to dig into some music. So, John, what do you have in store for me to go off and listen to today, my friend?
So the band are called Tubeway Army.
Tubeway Army, huh? Okay, I'm assuming that was Tubeway Army. Is that just another way of saying subway? I guess Tubeway.
I don't think anyone says Tubeway. I mean, the tube is the underground.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I get pictures because this is the time it was of Tubeway Army of like football fans all piling down. But it's not. But yeah,
Okay, well, interesting. All right, well, let me go off. I need a name of a track here. What's the name of the track by Tubeway Army?
it's called Our Friends Electric question mark. And the word friends has little marks around it. Like
Oh,
like the eyebrows
friends.
from yes, like the eyebrows from Penfold. Friends.
Right. And it's ARE, not OUR. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Good,
It's the
good, good.
question. Are friends electric?
Yeah,
Not
yeah, yeah.
our.
Got you, got you. All right, well, I got all of the punctuation and spellings and everything. Let me go off and give this thing a spin, and I'll come back and let you know what I think. Yeah.
It's cold outside, and the paint's spilling off of my walls. There's a man outside in a long coat grey hat, smoking a cigarette.
All right, this is interesting. Very synth forward, which isn't always my cup of tea, but I have to concede that this musical motif that they've constructed here has this like earwormy quality to it where it just kind of bores in and you instantly start moving with it. So it has that infectious kind of quality to it, even if the synth nature of it is somewhat off-putting to me. This isn't necessary, like something that is this synth forward isn't necessarily something that I flock to, but it is cool and interesting to hear what they've done with it, and it will be to see what they do with it moving forward. Your man comes in singing sort of this observational approach, what he sees, he notes and sings about. He's got kind of this boyish look to him, and the voice, I guess, matches that kind of quality as well. So yeah, let's see where we go from here. That's an interesting sound.
Now the light fades out, and I wonder what I'm doing in a room like this. There's a knock on the door, and just for a second I thought I remembered you.
This part. What is that? There's this added. It almost sounds percussive in the way that it crashes, but I think it's. I don't know. I hope the performance will confirm where that's coming from, but I don't know if it's like an affected guitar or if it's something that's happening on one of those synth keyed instruments that I've seen throughout. But it's obviously not this electric drum thing. If it is, it's not being played by your man with a perfectly formed semi-fro back there on the traditional kit. So yeah, that's interesting sound. Take it back to where that comes in.
And just for a second I thought I remembered you.
The blank stares are a bit much.
So now I'm alone. Now I can think for myself about little deals and issues, things that I just don't understand. I could white light at night, or it's like touch at times. I don't think I've been anything to you.
Yeah, this sounds. From what I'm picking up, it has this air of like unrequited feelings from him, the narrator, to whoever this you is that he's alluded to a couple times.
So I open the door. It's the friend that I left in the hallway. Please sit down. A candlelit shadow on the wall of the bed.
Yeah, I like that sustained note on the keys, and then it kind of descends down into another kind of resonant note, a bit lower than the first. I don't know if it needs the direct eye contact while we're doing that, though, pal.
You know I hate to ask, but the friend's electric. Only mine's broke down.
Hold on. That ill-timed breaststroke through the air made him a little tardy on the delivery, to the point where I think I'm getting, maybe there's some lip syncing happening here. I had a haunting suspicion earlier. that's a hell of a place to pause, Branch. Yeah, let's see how that worked out.
Friend's electric. Only mine's broke down. And now I've no one to love.
Okay. Is that coming from the Telecaster there? It looks like it. His strum pattern would suggest it aligns with that sound. Let me take that back again. Maybe a little bit more. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to get to the bottom. Huh. Wonder what effect that is.
So I find out your reason for the phone calls and smiles.
Wanted to catch that before it cuts off. Yeah, this is a very cool stage setup. I definitely like that. I didn't realize, I don't know what took me so long to put this all together, but I didn't realize how high up the bass player was on that sort of like flight of steps. But it's a cool layout for sure. Yeah, and it wasn't. If you had described this song to me, I think I would be more inclined to not listen to it than if I had just went in blind and hit play because it's pretty good for not being exactly my cup of tea. The singer is an interesting cat, though. You can tell just by his his presence. There's almost like he lacks. It feels like he's lacking confidence in some of his moves, and yet he's doing them despite that. But what do I know? Maybe he's got the greatest stage presence one man has ever seen. This is just one performance. Am I gleaning this useless opinion? But it was interesting subject matter as well, where he's it sounds like this our friend's electric, his mind's broken or something like that, and I don't know if friend is the right term for what it is he's feeling. Maybe it is, I don't know, but it sounds like it's something more than that, but it's not a two-way street. From what I was able to glean from the lyrics that I picked up. I'm going to take a few more notes and see what John has to say about this. The aesthetics are pretty cool though. Like I like that they're all kind of in like matching garb. I understand that this is obviously quite dated, so it's the hairstyles and stuff like that might not be what I would flock to, but it's just cool that they have this cohesive kind of look and aesthetic. And it sounds like they have that with their music as well. Everything paired really well together. That guitar was really interesting. I'd love to know what effect that was that gave it that kind of sound quality. And while they're a bit too forward in the mix and lean a little too synthy for me, all the keys were like working in harmony together as well. So you can't fault them. This is clearly something that they were going for, and they've hit the nail on the head. Now, I'm sure that there are thousands, if not millions, of people who really, really enjoyed this sound. For me, it's a bit hit or miss, but this was kind of danced on the line a little bit. I wasn't wowed by his vote. There's a lot of like almost spoken word to this, which isn't, unless you've got a really interesting voice or you're saying something really interesting, isn't going to necessarily captivate me. But there was enough there for me to be entertained through this like 5 minute, ordeal. And it was a pretty cool, like I said, stage and live performance setting with all the cool lighting and the fog and all that, and just sort of this geometric kind of layout that they've got going on here. I dug it. So yeah, let's Tubeway Army. Not working with much here, so let's run back to John and see what he has to say about these fellas and this tune.
John Logie Baird, he's back. So you've had to listen to our Friends Electric by Tubeway Army. What do you make of it all?
I didn't know this was going to be a live-ish performance with the
Oh,
yes.
okay. Before we get into that,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to. So this was a obviously mimed, but it was a performance for a TV show which was never aired. Perhaps because they looked like they were the cast of Night of the Living Dead or something. I mean, it was just Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just. I thought that was another little extra. I completely forgot about that actually. So yes, enjoy.
Oh, did I? Given that that I'm not the world's biggest fan of something that is that synth forward, it was this added thing that I could kind of focus on if the synth effects were too much for me, or the spoken word delivery too at times. But aesthetically, it was very interesting. It was almost like this industrial slash MC Escher drawing where all this geometric figures and steps and fog machine going off and interesting like backlighting and stuff like that. Go ahead.
Well, it's a little glimpse into the future because that's how everyone will be dressed and looking in the year 2020. So
But no one will see because everyone's inside. What happened?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had to laugh at that. Also, like his haircut was such a like, mom took you to the barber haircut, and just said give him a haircut. But everybody else, like your man on the drummer with the like half fro helmet was great. I loved it. It was just
Fantastic.
great. It was just great. All of it
Yeah.
was wonderful.
I went at one point, him and the keyboard both turned to the
Yes.
camera. And he's quite energetic, and it just was just a moment. It's sort of, anyway, I'm
all the
sorry.
all the all the blank stares like that just you felt at home, years later, still like this is uncomfortable but also hilarious at the same time. Yeah, there was a lot of that going on, but it was all that is for laughs, and if it wasn't entertaining, we wouldn't be here laughing about it and pointing stuff out. So it had entertainment value, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so the performance and the song kicks off. I mean, I should say performance because, yeah, I knew he was at the very least he was lip syncing most of it. Then at like the 3/4 mark, boy, did I get confirmation. I'll bring it up in my notes. So the performance of the song kicks off with this very synthy motif that has a little bit of bounce to it, like it's just a little off kilter a little bit. The way the notes are going back and forth, so it makes you move your shoulders a bit. So hey, they know how to write an earwormy riff because it was definitely stuck in my head. The singer joins and begins delivering the first verse in a very observational kind of stream of consciousness fashion, depicting the cold weather outside, paint peeling off the walls, and some guy bundled up smoking a cig. Um, After delivering the line about the cigarette, another sound is injected into the soundscape, and it's deeper and almost like this. It has this percussive nature to it, but it's not drums at all. And it took me a while to figure out what it was because of the interesting, we'll call it that, camera work through some of this. Where so I was like, is it coming from one of the synth people? Because there was like two different guys I think that were kind of manning key stations, but every time that would make an appearance, I couldn't match their hands to like the sound that was being had. Spoiler alert, it was that goddamn guy on the Telecaster. I think it was him because like I saw his strum pattern. I'm like, oh, okay, but I didn't notice that until well into it who it actually was. But it was a really interesting sound, and I wonder what effect that was on his guitar that gave it that almost crashing sound. It would have been a lot easier to hear if so those synths were pulled back a little bit at any given moment for me to be able to discern a bit, but it is what it is. Um, the singer delivers the next verse in which he sings of the light in the room fading out and wondering what he's doing there. He also mentions a knock on the door, and for a moment he thinks he remembered this you that he mentions throughout. I gotta say, the deadpan stares in the camera, this is when I wrote it in real time, by the band members during the performance are equal parts comedic and unsettling. It's worth mentioning twice. Things shift slightly as we enter the next portion of the track, during which the singer sings, "So now I'm alone and I can think for myself," and mentions something about deals and things he just doesn't understand, and something about a slight touch, and not meaning anything to, again, you. And yeah, I had to do that because at one point he sort of like caressed his shoulder when he said it. He wanted it seemed to be towing the line of wanting to be performative, but also like some amount of shame or restraint in him behind the eyes, because there are parts where he like moves a little bit, but it seems subdued a bit. It's not lavish and over the top like you would think a frontman of this kind of band would, this so much of this sound I equate to that androgynous movement that was happening in rock and roll, and where you're kind of fluid with your seemingly your sexuality, but certainly your movements and how demonstrative you are on stage. And you seem to be towing a line a little bit here in an odd way. Just an observation for me, but you look like you wanted to weigh in.
Well, I'll chip on this later, but yeah, just to confirm that there's a combination of awkwardness and nerves
Mm,
made him be like that. So you see Tom and other things as well, internally with him. But you see little moments where he does relax. He's almost smiling and bits, and
yeah.
And then it goes back to this kind of weird android thing, you know. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. So, it sounds like he's confused about the feelings of someone to whom he is attracted, or that he's coming to grips with this unrequited nature of his feelings versus the person to whom he is referring. I don't want to read into this. It's not very fair. You shouldn't really think about this stuff too much unless someone wants to broach the subject with you. But nonetheless, I can't help but think if this is the classic, and given when this song came out, and just from the aesthetics, if this is someone grappling with his own sexuality, and maybe he feels something for a male figure that who looks at him as a friend, but he looks at them as something more than that. I don't want to, go too far into it, and if I'm, especially if I'm wrong. But we've touched on songs like this, whether on Into the Music or this channel, where there's a little bit of that going on. So it wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility for me to suggest that. And it doesn't have to be a guy either. It could be anyone that you feel there. God knows that there's plenty of hetero versions of this, right? Where someone's like, "Oh, I like her, but she doesn't like me," or vice versa. So there just seems to be some of that in the air, if I'm being honest with you. He sings about some encounter with a friend in the hallway and then sitting on a bed amidst this candlelit corner or something like that. There is this interesting. This happens a few times too, but it was kind of fun to watch as long as I didn't look in the dude's eyes. But that sustain on the one key, that kind of dips down almost like a third of the way down, and you hear the descending note, and then it sustains on that note as well. It's not much, but it's just a little flourish that you hear and pick up on, and it just adds to it. So that was nice. I enjoyed that bit. So during he goes into the next stanza of lyrics during which he sings about or asks something about friends being electric, title drop. And that his has broken down, whatever that means. This electric friend seems to have malfunctioned in some way, shape, or form. Just check the battery settings or hope you have a warranty, I guess. He then performs this really ill-timed breaststroke through the air while spinning about. And I gotta be honest, he barely made it back to the mic in time for the next line to be delivered. In fact, I'm pretty sure the line only was delivered while he was still like three-quarters of the way spun around from this breaststroke experiment that he deployed for whatever reason. And it was at that point where I got confirmation that yeah, this is clearly a lip syncing situation we have on our hands. But yeah, made me laugh. I think I even took that part back. I was like, I've got to see him fumble through this again. He delivers.
But
Go ahead. Go ahead.
it just sprung to mind, and I'll forget it later. So that was the sort of joy as these sort of. I mean, you had other instruments within this, and I have to say the drummer though, it looked funny, had a wonderful bouncy action.
Oh yeah,
He was really going for it.
yeah,
But that was the thing with the synthesizers sort of bands when they first came in. Um, they were like, what do I do? Do I do go sort of Jerry Lee on it or what?
yeah,
There's not
yeah,
much to do. And as they advanced into the samplings, as well, sometimes you see them on top of pops and they had a like just computer screen and the guys just pressing one button and then
yeah,
pressing another button and that's it. So the performance was a real sort of, a real question for them as to what they could actually do. And you get it developed later on. You got people like Chemical Brothers and that put on a massive show, all the
yeah.
graphics and all that sort of stuff. But back then, I mean, so bless old Gary, he tries to do a bit of a turn and fucks it up. It's just brilliant. It really says a lot.
Was. It was great. But you're right. You should, um, looking back on it, like, give these guys a little bit of grace because it's not like you could jam out on your guitar and move around and like
Well,
interact
the
with each
cursed
other.
guitar,
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah. But you're
famous
really
from that.
just like bolted there because you can't move around. It's not a movable instrument, and you're only pressing so many of the keys. So much of it is sustain driven that yeah, it. God bless the visual effects that would be added later as time and make it more of an experience outside of just five guys awkwardly on stage going through the motions. He delivers the last stanza of lyrics, and it appears he's come to grips with the whole situation as if he's learned a lesson of some sort, though I'm not sure what that is. This is followed by some more synthy music that kind of acts as like a coda for the end of the performance. This wasn't something I would normally flock to, given how synth heavy it is, and given the nature of your man's voice, which didn't really do anything for me. But the song and the main musical through line of it were really catchy, as I mentioned before, and that acted as quite the earworm. So I did enjoy it, and the performance was interesting as a whole. So it's not like this, I regret having listened to this or anything. I enjoyed the experience. It's just, this isn't my cup of tea typically, but there's enough redeeming and interesting stuff going on here that it made the watch enjoyable. And I'm sure you're going to tell me some interesting stuff about the band, so you've got my attention. So yeah, please tell me more, John.
Yeah, just to say thanks for that, Andy. This is a key pivotal song in British music history.
Okay.
And it was massive as well.
Yeah.
And of its time, it's hard to look back on it now, but of its time, and like yourself, I'm not particularly, I've said this before, not particularly drawn to sort of synth pop stuff, but having grown up as that was coming through, you do get attached to a certain amount, and this is one which is definitely up there. So, Tubeway Army, really interesting stuff here. I'll try to power through it. Formed in London in 1977, they are known as a punk band, a post-punk band, a new wave band, and a synth pop band evolution. So, at 18 years old, Gary Webb, who you saw there singing, had fronted a band in London called Mean Streets in 1976. Mean Streets, sorry. Couldn't afford more than one. After leaving this band, he auditioned as a lead guitarist for another band called the Lasers, where he met bass player Paul Gardner. The Lasers soon became Tubeway Army, with Webb's uncle, Jess Lydiard, on drums. Webb, they all then chose character names themselves. So Webb renamed himself as Valerian. Gardner became Scarlet with two T's, and Lydiard became Rael. Keeping it Rael. So the band began playing gigs in the punk scene in London and managed to sign with the independent label Beggars Banquet, renowned label in this country. Great stuff. They released two singles in 1978, and none of them bothered the charts in any way whatsoever. So during this time, as you'd imagine, the band went through loads of lineup changes, and they changed drummers, they added another guitarist, and then due to all musical differences, Webb and Gardner split with them as they wanted to move away from punk. By this time, Tubeway Army had abandoned playing live. They were really unhappy with the sort of pub venues gigs in London, which often became quite violent. And the crowd, their last gig in the 1978 in July, sharing the bill with the Skids, another great punk band. It was abandoned halfway through the set because of violence, and so then Webb decided studio-only band. So soon after that, they brought out their first album, Tubeway Army. It was recorded in the original lineup. At this point, so that was with Webb, Gardner, and Lydiard. At this point, Webb then adopted the name Gary Newman, taking a pseudonym from a local Yellow Pages, where a plumber called Arthur Neumann, so Neumann, so proper German name, was listed. And he chose that, but he abandoned the German spelling to become Newman, which is Numan.
Yeah, this name sounds familiar to me for some reason.
It is. We'll get to it. You'll know why. So still largely a guitar, bass, drums. They were in the studio, and he accidentally came across a Mini Moog synthesizer during an album session. He'd never seen one before. And he started arsing around with it. The lyrics of this first album were touched on dystopian and sci-fi themes because Newman, as he is now, was a massive fan of J.G. Ballard and Philip K. Dick. So at one point, he wanted to drop the Tubeway Army name because he thought that was too associated with punk and go on his own, but Beggars Banquet said, no, keep it. So they released the album, self-titled Tubeway album. It had a modest initial pressing of 5,000, which sold out, but then nothing more after that. Didn't enter any charts, no singles. So moving swiftly on, he went back into the studio and recorded their second album, follow-up album, Replicas, in early 79. The result was more synth and science fiction orientated than that one. So you're getting that sort of the rise of the synth music and all that futuristic stuff. We touched on it with Ultravox as well, the sort of, going toward this sort of Android-y, the future, you know.
Uh-huh.
So the first single was this slow-paced keyboard song called Down in the Park, which failed to chart, although it would become a cult track in many years to come, and has been covered by Marilyn Manson, Foo Fighters, and 15 other bands. The next single, which you listened to, Our Friends Electric, was released in May 1979. After a modest start at number 71, it steadily climbed the charts and hit the number one spot in the following month of June. The underlying context of this song was also a reference to a Philip K. Dick's novel To Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, which then became Blade Runner. Tubeway Army's appearance on the Old Grey Whistle Test, followed by a slot on Top of the Pops, grabbed the British public's imagination, this sort of, Android-y looking group of people. The band now included Ultravox keyboardist Billy Currie, Chris Payne, Paul Gardner on bass, and the drummer that we saw there with the fro was Cedric Sharpley. They're all dressed in black and near motionless. Newman in particular given a performance often referred to as like an android, a style that's later reported to be a means of covering stage nerves, which then became his trademark. The single remained at number one in the UK for 4 weeks, with the album Replicas following suit and also hitting the number one spot in the album charts. By the end of the year, Our Friends Electric was the 4th highest selling single in the UK that year. It was probably the first synth pop British single that hit number one. So other bands followed and were trying to get in there, O&D and Ultras with all that. But Tubeway Army, the first synth driven one that British that was in there, this new music. So it's pretty important in terms of inspiring others as well. In a 2014 interview with The Guardian, Newman commented on the song lyrics. He said, "All my early songs were about being alone or misunderstood. As a teenager, I'd been sent to a child psychiatrist and been put on medication. I had Asperger's and saw the world differently. I immersed myself in sci-fi writers Philip K. Dick and J.G. Ballard. The lyrics came from a short stories I'd written about what London would be like in 30 years' time. These machines, friends, come to the door. They supply services of all kinds, but your neighbours never know what they really are since they look human. The one in this song is a prostitute, hence the inverted commas. It was released in May 1979 and sold 1 million copies. I had a number one single with a song about a robot prostitute and nobody knew." I never knew until we did the research on this that he had Asperger's. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, cracking to lyrics. It's cold outside and the paint's peeling off on my walls. There's a man outside in a long coat, grey hat, smoking a cigarette. Now the light fades out and I'm wondering what I'm doing in a room like this. There's a knock on the door and just for a second I thought I remembered you. Do-do, do-do. So now I'm alone. Now I can think for myself about little deals and issues and things I just don't understand. Like a white lie that night or a slight touch at times. I don't think it meant anything to you. So I open the door. It's the friend I left in the hallway. Please sit down. A candle lit a shadow on a wall near the bed. I hate to ask, but are friends electric? Mine's broke down and now I've no one to love. So I find out the reason for the phone calls and smiles, and it hurts and I'm lonely. I should never have tried and I missed you tonight. So it's time to leave. You see, you mean everything to me. So at the peak of their success, they had a John Peel session in June 79, so just after the hit number one, and they credited the session as Gary Newman, and the Tubeway Army name was dropped. Newman, however, would keep the same musicians as his own backing band for his subsequent solo releases and tours. Following the band's split, he released his debut solo album, The Pleasure Principle, later in the same year in 79, which also reached number one in the UK charts and produced another UK number one single with Cars. Although his commercial popularity and chart success sort of peaked end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, Gary Newman has maintained a really strong cult following ever since then. He has released 22 studio albums, 29 live albums, 17 compilation albums, and 51 singles, and he has sold 10 million records worldwide.
Wow.
Well, you would do with that many bloody albums, but anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah.
and his most recent album, in fact, his last two, both entered. His most recent album was Intruder in 2021, entered the charts, UK charts, album charts at number 2. So he still has that fan base even
Yeah.
now, and he's still going.
Clearly.
And just as an aside, Our Friends Electric was sampled by a chap called Richard X in a song titled We Don't Give a Damn About Our Friends. And it was a mashup with Our Friends Electric and vocals from Adina Howard's Freak Like Me. It was then re-recorded by the Sugar Babes under the latter title, Freak Like Me, and achieved a #1 hit in the UK in 2002. And Newman considered this cover to be better than his original.
Oh, wow.
I have to say, I mean, I'm not a fan of Sugar Babes, whatever, but it was really well done. Really well done. As a sort of pop song, and they used the music fantastically. So yeah, really interesting character. It's a great, interesting song. I know I knew like what you say about synth pop and about sort of delivery, but it's a little slice of history. This song,
Yeah, yeah.
there's loads of people my age who have a massive fondness for it.
And to be fair, like I can think of far worse examples of synth pop that
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't have enjoyed at all. There were still redeeming qualities to this song, despite it being from a genre that I'm not really like,
yeah.
gaga over. So, and it's cool that because I think even in the video I'm like Tubeway. I don't know if I've ever heard of these guys, but I've heard of Gary Newman and I've heard his
Yeah.
music before. I just didn't make the connection, which is so
No.
interesting to me.
And he's still really young there. I guess he'd have been 19,
Yeah.
maybe 20,
Yeah, he
something
looked
around there.
boyish. I think I said that too. Like
Yeah,
right at
yeah.
the beginning, I'm like, oh my God, this guy looks super young here.
I mean, the story behind it is, he's got a quite, he put white makeup on his face, which again made him look less human, but apparently
Yeah.
it was to cover terrible acne. I don't know how true that is, but that's the sort of the story behind that. So yeah, just a really interesting slice of synth pop from Britain in 1979. So there
Yeah.
you go.
I don't know where else I would have stumbled across it, so I'm glad you brought it to the channel and to me.
I would imagine if you watch television long enough, you'd find it in an advert somewhere.
Yeah,
It's been
maybe.
used a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
times. Probably more in this country, but
I was just
eventually.
gonna say, start watching more British television.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I shall wrap things up. Thanks for this, Andy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. If you like this, please do hit the like button. And drop some comments. We'd love to hear what you think about this song, this sort of era, all this synth pop bands just coming into the fore. Really interesting time. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but there's some things, if they're good, they're good, So yeah, we'd love to hear from you, what you think about it. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Hop on board. We really appreciate everybody who does support the channel. And every day we gather up a couple more, just like the Child Snatcher and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.